What's up, guys, and welcome to the Photo Finish, Scot Radio's home for motorsports in general and NASCAR in particular. Hope you all enjoyed the Delta Force music as we get ready for the Indy 500.
I heard him pick the song and I almost punched the padded wall we have, mostly because it really wouldn't hurt. But yeah, hope you enjoyed.
As you can see, or hear rather, I guess, Chase Draus is back in the studio with us tonight.
Yep, I'm back.
Yeah, always good to have you on the show, Chase.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to hear you banging at my door. Oh, hey, can you help me out with radio? And I mean, I didn't work today, so I mean, yeah, dude, I'm down. It's always a fun time to talk NASCAR.
Yeah,
Formula
always great to have somebody else to talk to. Yeah, well, I'm your host, Ben Schneider, and we've got some pretty interesting stuff to talk about today. Obviously, with the Indy 500 coming up, we'll kind of give our picks for that in the whole month of May, but also NASCAR was at Dover this weekend, and also a couple of pieces of news before we get into all that to cover, and we're going to actually bring in a segment later on that Chase normally does on his show, The End. It's called Two Truths and a Lie, and we'll explain a little bit more about what that is when we get to it. But first, some news that broke today that's very interesting and I think very, very big for a certain young IndyCar driver right now. Pato O'Ward, the reigning Indy Lights champion, was supposed to be full-time in IndyCar this year. Sponsorship and money and whatever all fell through. He's only running part-time this year for Carlin. He has joined the junior program for Red Bull's Formula One team.
I'm going to be completely honest. I did not see this one coming.
I don't think anybody did. It was just kind of something that was out of the blue. Although, to be fair, with how he's been running and the potential that he's showing, and he's only 20 years old, in some ways I'm not necessarily that surprised that it happened. I'm surprised by the timing, obviously. I think nobody was expecting it. Nobody knew it was coming. But
no one really was expecting this one. I think that's probably half the reason why we're giving it as much time as we are.
Yeah, Pato O'Ward pretty much dominated the Indy Lights Championship last year. Indy Lights is basically the Xfinity Series or Formula 2. It's the highest level of development series for IndyCar racing and American open wheel racing. He won a total of 9 races in 17 opportunities last year. Easily won the championship. And as I mentioned, he was supposed to be full-time as a teammate to Colton Herta this season at Harding Racing, which is now Harding Steinbrenner Racing. But some funding or some sort of issue came up and fell through. I assume it was sponsorship, but he was released by the team in February, about a month before St. Petersburg. But he joined Carlin Racing on March 7th for a part-time deal that's going to see him run 13 races, so not quite full-time, but still the majority of the races. And with the potential that he's shown, he absolutely deserves to have a full-time ride. It's a crime that he doesn't have a full-time ride this year. But he also, with all of his sports car experience and obviously the Indy Lights Championship, he does technically have enough FIA super license points if he wanted to, if Red Bull wanted to, rather, say, hey, we don't want to run Pierre this week, we want to run you. He could go over to Spain right now and go over and run the Grand Prix there. He is eligible for an F1 super license. And I personally don't like the super license system. I feel like we should just have people that judge talents based on what they've accomplished, and we don't need a strict point system that we think can universally apply to everybody. But it's kind of irrelevant here because he does have the points necessary.
I can understand why they have the system, but I do kind of feel like it is kind of foolish, but at the same time, I mean, he literally blew all the qualifications out of the water in, one season? Something like that? Well,
it wasn't quite one season. He's been racing in junior leagues for a while now, but he's only 20 years old, and
it's scary.
Just turned 20 on
May 6th.
May 6th, actually.
It's scary. I am actually older than him, and he is already accomplishing more than I probably ever will in the world of sports, so, I mean...
Yeah, it certainly made me feel old this year when Colton Herta won. It's an IndyCar winner born in the year 2000. Oh, boy.
First one.
That's kind of crazy to think about, but...
Not sure how I feel about that, but...
Yeah.
I mean... Good for him. I mean, you know what? He's got a promising career ahead, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he's going to be able to rise, amongst, the world of racing. I just feel like this kid has so much promise, and I feel like we've only really scraped the surface of it, let alone, what's really going to happen once he actually, gets used to racing at these calibers.
Yeah. Well, I have seen some people on Twitter who have been arguing, hey, F1 guys, F1 teams should be looking at what Pato O'Ward's doing because he is still super young and has a lot of potential, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Red Bull's junior program is pretty boom or bust. It's boom if you're Sebastian Vettel. It's bust if you're Sebastian Bourdais. Well, in the world of F1, I mean, he won 4 straight Champ Car championships from 04 to 07, which is basically what CART became after they went bankrupt. And then when the reunification deal came in, he went over to run Formula One for Toro Rosso, of course, Red Bull's junior team. And it did not go very well at all. Yeah, so he eventually came back to the States to run IndyCar. So, and he hasn't had, he's won a few races here and there. He hasn't had as much success. Of course, he's driving for a pretty small team, but...
I mean, hey, a team's a team. Doesn't matter how big or small, as long as you're racing.
Yep.
But, I mean, I can't understand the whole, like, obviously, like Joe Gibbs Racing, they want to have, the best racers possible and, like, essentially be the 1, 2, 3. But, in actuality, that's not always how it works out. But, I mean, Ben and I are in a similar spot because we run track and it's a similar system where it's just like, we have, like, we're individual runners, but we still add points for a team. So it's like, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's just like, I mean, I'm just happy to be there.
Well,
so.
yeah, F1 in particular because you have the Constructors' Championship, but...
So,
yeah. So this is going to be interesting to follow looking forward. Another thing that's going to be interesting, and Chase, I think the first time you were on this show, we talked about this because the series had just been launched. The W Series ran their inaugural race this weekend at Hockenheim, and at least here in the States, it didn't get a whole lot of press, a whole lot of coverage, and I don't even think there was a television option available. I think it's mostly over in Europe that they've got those things set up already, but... For what it's worth, Jamie Chadwick won, and that's honestly not really a surprise for me because looking at the list of the 18 drivers that we've got right now, she was basically the only one that I am pretty knowledgeable about, or was pretty knowledgeable about at least before this series took off.
Right now, a lot of people, right now the big question is like, okay, can anyone actually beat Chadwick? Because I Googled, because I didn't know that they actually got it up and running. I'm really happy about that, but... I mean, I'm looking at it, all the articles right now. BBC.
Her qualifying time was 1.73 seconds ahead of the second-place driver.
Yikes. I mean, that's really impressive, but at the same time, it's just... At what point where it's just like, all right, you need to get the call-up? It literally...
She's won a Formula 3 race.
I know. It's like...
So that's...
I feel like, yes, she's doing groundbreaking work with the W Series, but at the same time, it's just like I feel like she could get the call up to like Formula 2, or
that's
or
like
the
Formula
whole 3, where it's like
that's the whole argument that the naysayers will put forward is that Hailie Deegan's won a K&N race, Danica Patrick's had a lot of success, is this really necessary? And my feeling about how this whole series has come about is basically I stand with Pippa Mann pretty much exactly, and that's. We stand against the series in principle, but we stand with the drivers who see this as either their best or, in some cases, only opportunity to get behind the wheel of a race car.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that statement because it's hard because, you have the one, side of, the feminist theory here because with the sociological aspect where it's like you're giving women a chance that they might not have in other cases. However, it's also kind of discriminatory where it's like, oh, well, they need a whole separate league, especially when a sport like auto racing where women have proven themselves on multiple occasions. It kind of reminds me of like the whole, who would be better, Roger Federer or Serena Williams. And they actually went up against each other in a mixed tennis match, and they literally were just like, it was dead even. Like they were just like, I have no idea how to read your serve or no idea how to read your volleys, and then because but at the same time, it's like I feel like Chadwick. A lot of people would say that about her in Formula 3, where it's like, yeah, no, she's a really talented racer. Yeah. She deserves to be here.
I remember when John McEnroe made the Serena Williams comments about her. If she were a man, she wouldn't be in the top 700 or whatever he said. Will Kane gave the final take on First Take that day.
Serena herself in 1998 said that she could beat any man ranked 200th or lower. She subsequently played the 203rd ranked man and lost 6-1.
So. When you look at this is what has always to me been the beauty of motorsports is that the car cannot tell if you're male or female. If you have the general athletic ability to handle a race car for the duration of an event, I feel like men and women should and can, and I think we've proven that they can compete on equal grounds.
I mean, when Danica first won the IndyCar race, I remember waking up and watching SportsCenter that morning, and that was literally all they were talking about for the first half hour. was the fact that Danica won a race. And they're like, oh, she's the next big thing in motorsports. And
she never won again.
Sadly, I feel like that's because they pushed her. They pushed her way too soon.
If she had stayed in IndyCar, she would have gotten a few more wins for sure, I think.
I mean, but...
if she had stayed in Nationwide for a few more years, I think she would have won a few races there. But.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case of, being brought up way too quickly. I mean, in some cases, yeah, it might, be good to just kind of, be thrown into the mix. It's like, oh, yeah, she might be able to rise up to the challenge, and if not, she'll be able to pick it up eventually. However, there's just some
put her in a handful of Cup races per year, and then
part-time,
bring her, let her get the experience of a track she's not going to in Nationwide and later Xfinity, and see how she does there. Get the experience that way. But
I mean, either way, she still revolutionized the sport for women because she proved that women can be an elite talent in motorsports.
Yeah.
Because I mean, for a while, she was definitely she was always a name you always have to look out for.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, Janet Guthrie really is the one who broke ground originally. She's got a 6th place finish at Bristol in Cup and finished 9th of the 78 Indy 500. So,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, Danica's been the biggest name in modern times. Do you guys want to talk about who actually broke the barriers? Yeah, Janet Guthrie, Lynn St. James. Those are a couple names that if you go further back in history. And I think Sarah Christian, I think she's the only woman to have a top 5 in the Cup Series. But it was I think it was their first season ever, 1949, 1950. So maybe. Obviously, this NASCAR was brand new back then. But
still, it's
for what it's worth.
Impressive.
Yeah, those are your most groundbreaking women in auto racing for you. But
congratulations, you have been educated on the females of auto racing. Be blessed.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Great weekend for Jamie Chadwick, though.
Yeah.
So
no, I feel like she's gonna
gotta be the championship favorite at this point. Yeah. I don't know how much we're gonna cover. Well,
obviously we're not gonna be here for.
Well, yeah, we're going into the summer. I don't know how much I'm gonna cover the W Series on social media, but.
Yeah, make sure to give them a follow if you're not already.
Yeah.
Make sure to follow
BC Schneider 53 on all social media.
Yeah. One of the premier up-and-comers in auto racing journalism and opinions, bloggers. I don't know what you call yourself.
I want to stay humble here.
It's okay. I'll stoke your ego. I'll be the one who stokes your ego and just make sure that you pump yourself up.
I'm doing my best. Yep. Let's get into Dover, shall we?
Yeah.
Actually, before we get into Dover, let's get into the K&N Series. They were in South Boston, Virginia this weekend. The K&N East Series was. And there were 2 races. It was a doubleheader. They had that this weekend. K&N West has their doubleheader at Tucson, actually in just a couple days here this weekend. But the first race was won by a kid named Tanner Gray, and he is a former NHRA Pro Stock champion. He's come over to race K&N this year, so he's making a transition from drag racing over to stock car racing. We'll see where
that's a very odd transition.
I thought the same thing when I heard that this guy was coming over. And I don't follow the NHRA as much. I mean, I know Ron Capps and John Force and his daughters and all of them.
But still, he led 79 laps. That's impressive.
Yeah. No, he's having a good year. So I've been very impressed with him and how he's been able to make the transition because drag racing it's a totally different.
Essentially, your whole job is all right.
You need reaction time, hold the car in a straight line, hang on for dear life, and floor it.
Pray to God you don't flip. Basically, the summary of drag racing. But I mean, you gotta give credit to this kid because he's proven a lot of people wrong. Because I'm not gonna lie. When you first told me he was a drag racer, I'm like, I knew Gray won, but I'm like, really, he was a drag racer? You don't see that transition.
The youngest champion in NHRA history. So
this kid's got a bright future.
I guess he figured, well, I've already won a championship. Let's go race NASCAR.
Yeah, let's see how far I can take this.
And winning the second race was Derek Kraus. Second race was actually postponed to the following day due to rains that led to a couple drivers having to actually head home and make driver swaps and changes because they had other commitments already because they weren't expecting to have to stay. But Derek Kraus won the second race, and he is now your K&N East championship points leader, which is surprising because Bill McAnally Racing is a K&N West team, but they ran the first 2 races. Kraus found himself exiting Bristol 3 points out of a championship, so BMR said, you know what, why not? Let's go to South Boston and see what happens. Now he's got the points lead. So I think at this point,
the gamble paid off. I mean, really,
Yeah.
it did. Because
but do you think he's going to run the full season? I feel like you have to at this point.
I mean, at this point, it's just like
And it's
you
not
got the ball rolling. At this point, it's just like, all right, let's see how we can go. Because I mean, he's got the hot hand. I mean, why not? Strike when the iron's hot.
Yep, and it's not unprecedented. Todd Gilliland ran the full season for both K&N East and K&N West for BMR in 2017, and had he not hit the wall at Dover in the final race, he would have won the championship in both series.
Man, that's impressive. I mean, I appreciate NASCAR, but what I really love is watching the developmental racers come in because like they have so much more. Like they got everything to prove, and just it's a hungry style of racing, and I just love that. Like it's just like, oh man.
K&N is definitely my favorite series to watch right now, and it's unfortunate that it doesn't get. I mean, NBC tries here and there.
I mean,
of course, Matt and I have talked about that. Haley Deegan almost gets more coverage than the series does.
Yeah, I mean, but I still feel like it's kind of similar because I know WWE is scripted, but bear with me. They, their developmental brand NXT, they're actually getting a lot more recognizable because they're just like these guys are like, all right. I mean, obviously they don't really think we can, they think we deserve to be here. I mean, how some of these guys have had 20 years of training. Some of these guys are brand new, but they're like, all right, we're gonna go out and prove everybody wrong, and they've been putting on spectacular shows, and now they're more highly regarded than some of their main shows. And I feel like K&N is doing the exact same thing because it's just like, all right, let's just go put on the best race possible. Everyone's just so aggressive and, everyone wants it so bad. And then, they just go out and it's like you leave the racetrack thinking like, dang, that was a really good race. And that's what you got to do. You got to, in order to really keep auto racing alive, you got to have, hard-nosed aggressive racing because that's the style everyone really appreciates. And that's, that's why I fell in love with it. Like, I grew up with the, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson rivalry, and I just, like, that's half the reason why I would tune in, because I'm just like, dude, these guys hate each other. It's just like, oh, who's going to win? And my dad was a Gordon fan, I was a Johnson fan, and it's just like, all right, bragging rights, who do we got?
There was definitely a time where Jimmy was winning all his championships where...
I was so happy during that time.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Dad.
But Gordon was definitely... on more than one occasion saying, the 48's testing my patience.
48 is testing my patience, I can tell you that. It takes a lot to make me mad, and I'm pissed right now. I mean, when a car's going that much faster, I don't know what it is with me and him right now, but, whatever.
But, which is ironic because he literally owns his car. But
yeah. I mean, he has nothing to be ashamed of his career. Yeah. It's interesting, because you grew up with all these racers. Like, I grew up watching Tony Stewart, I grew up watching Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, and I witnessed, tail end of, middle school watching Joey Logano, all of a sudden win New Hampshire and, putting his name out, there like, hey, I deserve to be here too. And it's just like watching these guys grow up and it's like, dang, I feel old. But it's that next generation coming in, and we're seeing that in a lot of sports right now. That next generation of really great athletes, especially with motorsports, because I mean we got a lot of talent coming in. It's just are they going to be able to live up to the hype that it's a tall order to fill, especially with Jimmy, Stewart, like all these guys, surefire Hall of Famers, always being able to put on an amazing race. It's like they got a tall order, but I mean I think they can live up to the hype. So.
All right, so let's move into Dover now, the Xfinity Series race, and I'm starting to feel like whenever we talk about F1 and Lewis Hamilton winning, but Christopher Bell got the win at Dover.
Did not expect that one. Really did not expect that one.
He won the last time they were at Dover, and I was there. I witnessed it.
I did not see that one coming. I know Dover his track, but I'm thinking, okay, top 10 finish, possibly top 5. I'm like, I don't think he's going to be able to pull off the repeat, and lo and behold, pulls off the repeat.
Yep.
Well, I feel stupid.
Well,
I mean, hey, he put on a fantastic race. I mean, I have nothing against him.
Five top 3 finishes in the last 6 races. I think he's I've said this, obviously, I think he's your championship favorite at this point.
Hey, you know what? If he's able to keep up putting these numbers and he's able to get these finishes, he's got to be.
Well, I mean, I kind of mentioned this last week. I didn't expect Tyler Reddick to be as strong. I mean, Tyler Reddick hasn't finished worse than 4th since Las Vegas. So, and that was a 14th place finish. That's the worst finish this year. So he's actually done better with RCR this season than he was with Junior Motorsports last year. So I don't know if that championship just lit a fire under him. People saying he didn't deserve it, but to his credit, obviously Matt and I sat here on the show and talked about we didn't, not that he didn't deserve it, but his championship wasn't as strong or as impressive as others that have come before him, but he's got something to improve this year, and he's running very well. And he's going to be back in the Cup Series this weekend in Kansas, making his second career start for RCR there.
Hey, you know what? I give the kid a chance. I mean, it's I always love seeing these guys, who have that chip on the shoulder, because it's always like, all right, what's actually going to happen next? I mean, obviously I went on that rant a couple seconds earlier, but I'm excited to see what this kid can do. I mean,
yeah, I am too.
But
so with Christopher Bell running as strong as he is, Eric Jones is not under contract yet for next year. They keep saying they're working on it, but we haven't heard anything yet. He's also the only Gibbs driver. Of course, Truex won the Cup race on Monday, so we'll get to that in a second too. But he's the only driver at Gibbs in the Cup Series who hasn't won yet this year. Should he be concerned? Should he be under pressure? Should he consider himself on the hot seat?
I think he has a little bit of reason to worry. I mean, if he's getting top 5 finishes, and he's being consistent to a certain extent, I don't think you really have to worry as much. But I mean, if you're the only guy on your team that hasn't won a race, it's like you gotta start pulling your weight, because I mean, Joe Gibbs has the chance to completely run away with this, and you're kind of slacking off. So I can understand why.
This I feel like has almost been a theme with Joe Gibbs Racing and their young drivers. And you're a Logano fan, obviously. You saw Logano got rushed to Cup way too quickly. He looked very impressive when he came to Nationwide, but I still think Gibbs moved him up far too soon. Of course, they needed a replacement for Tony Stewart, who was going to start his own team, but they went with Logano, and Logano got off to a slow start. After 4 years, he only had 2 wins. They released him. He moves on to Penske. Now he's a Cup champion. And in the case of Daniel Suarez, who again was brought in very last minute because Carl Edwards announced in January that he was stepping away from the sport and retiring, and nobody expected that. Daniel Suarez has finished 20th and 21st in points in the Cup Series his first 2 years. He got the boot at Gibbs to make room for Truex. He's now at Stewart-Haas Racing, which obviously is a race-winning caliber team. You know what? Here's the funny thing with Suarez. If you look at his 5 best finishes through 11 races this year and last year in 2018, his 5 best finishes through 11 races were a 3rd, an 8th, a 10th, a 10th, and 11th. Now in 2019 with Stewart-Haas, through 11 races, his best 5 finishes are 3rd, 8th, 10th, 10th, and 11th.
I mean, hey,
it's just one of those. I'm a stats and numbers guy. It's one of those weird things that sticks out to me. But
I mean, hey, he's consistent, but at the same time, I mean, that third place finish, that will really help out. So,
yeah,
I mean, I think Gibbs should hold on a little bit. I mean, you gotta let the guy develop.
Yeah, and that's what I keep saying with Suarez. You give him, he deserves at least 2 years at Stewart-Haas. I think we'll reevaluate him from there. But I think he's still relatively young. Obviously, he's got a bright future ahead of him. He's an Xfinity Series champion. Yeah. It's far too early to give up on him and call him a NASCAR bust just because he had a couple of underwhelming. Well, I hesitate to say bad because he still had a handful of top 10s and top 5s. So, considering he was a young driver, he had pretty good years, but
it's
subpar compared to his teammates.
It's like like all of a sudden you draft like this star player and then he kills it in developmental, and then all of a sudden he gets to the pros and he's doing okay, and it's like, well, what the beef, man? Like, honestly, aren't you supposed to be a star? You're supposed to be winning this race series. And it's like, it's his first year against elite level competition. I mean, he's doing decent.
Even the jump from K&N to trucks, I think, is pretty, people don't realize the jump from regional to national. I mean, as I mentioned, Ty Gilliland tore it up in K&N, was winning pretty much every race. He still hasn't won a truck race yet, and people are already saying, well, what's up with Ty Gilliland? Why is he not winning? He's obviously not. He's not a future star. Like,
it's a completely different
give the kid some time to develop, man.
At least 2 years, that's really, kind of the developmental period. I mean, because, once you hit that 3rd year, you really know what to expect. You know the routine. You can kind of figure out, all right, I've been around these tracks a couple times. I know what works. I know what doesn't. And that's when you start to capitalize, around the 3rd time, 3rd, 4th time around. But, first time you're really expecting this kid, he's never driven on this track before. He's never, gone up against these quality of racers. So you really expect him to go out there and just kick everyone's tail? No, you kidding me? You gotta develop. Very rarely do you just have a racer who can just win all throughout his career. The only athlete who I can even think about who is even come remotely close to that is Tom Brady. And even then, Tom Brady's,
went 10 years without winning the Super Bowl.
Exactly. It's just like, you got to give the kid some time. give him 2 years. I think he'll win a couple races. But then again, only time will tell. So
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think it's also pretty clear that Bell's, second year in Xfinity, he's looking like a championship favorite. He could have easily won the championship last year. He was in the Final Four. Where is he going to go? And he even said this year he felt like he was ready. He felt like it was more valuable to him to go get in a Cup car and get experience there rather than spending another year in Xfinity. But I just don't see, unless Levine's able to expand to a second car now, they have the Gibbs Alliance. But we'll see what happens. I'm betting on Jones getting re-signed at least for one more year. Again, because he's still pretty young too. I think it's too early to give up on him. But that is a theme that Gibbs seem to have. Gibbs and Toyota recruit so many great young drivers, and then they're ready to move to Cup, and there's no room for them at the end.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. Sometimes if you over-recruit, there's we don't have a place for you, but, we'll tear it. You can tear it up in developmental, but, eventually you got to just get out of there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, so speaking of Gibbs, we go over to the Cup Series, and Martin Truex Jr. won his second race of the year, and his second win at Dover on a Monday because the race was postponed due to rain. So Martin Truex Jr. got his first ever Cup Series win in 2007 at Dover on a Monday because of the same reason. He now has his most recent career win at Dover on a Monday.
Stars aligned.
Yeah.
Literally the only way you could say it, but Truex deserved the win. He did a phenomenal job with this race. I was impressed. He just was able to kill it. Oh my word. I'm looking at the highlights right now, and I'm just like, he was just able to kill it. He did amazing.
Yeah. So. Huge margin of victory. I have to say though, the racing here, the racing at Dover hasn't been great for a while now. But it's painful how important clean air is with these cars in this package now, because and Dave Moody, who I kind of got on Dave Moody's case yesterday.
Yeah, he's like a pit bull when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Well, I don't know.
Dude, when you
try to be as nice as possible, but
dude, when you get fired up, you just don't hold back.
Yeah,
it's kind of intimidating. I'm not gonna lie. But
basically, Moody said something along the lines of, "If it's not hard to pass, why should we be impressed when you do it?" And Jeff Gluck responded brilliantly by quoting the tweet and saying, look, the drivers aren't complaining that it's hard to pass because they don't possess the skill. Obviously, these are the best stock car drivers in the country. They obviously have the skill and the talent. But talent can only overcome so much when the combination of the rules package we have and the laws of physics don't enable you to pass a car in front of you without getting some clean air. And obviously, when you approach... Because we've seen guys in faster cars be able to run guys down, and when you catch lap traffic, obviously, but then you go out to try to pass them, and it's next to impossible.
I just don't like this new car. I really don't. I don't like this generation
of
car.
You're not alone. I think a lot of people are begging for a Gen 7. Wake me up when the Gen 7 comes out.
Dude,
or just bring the Gen 4 back and give it the safety features of today and call it the Gen 7. I think.
Exactly. I think that's probably the best option you have right now. But, I do agree with you on the fact that, talent can only take you so far. However, with these limitations, it also invites, ingenuity. I think that's the right word. Where it's like the real, it might take time, but eventually someone's going to figure it out. And then when they figure it out, it's just going to be like that. They're just going to be able to just execute, and it's just going to be like, dang. And there very well might not be a way in, this car and the rules. It's entirely possible. And if it is, then obviously NASCAR needs to listen to their drivers, because ultimately they are NASCAR. Honestly, you don't think, you don't look at NASCAR and you're like, wow, what a great CEO. You look at NASCAR and you think, oh yeah, Joey Logano, Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex,
what a great CEO who's driving drunk in New York on a
that's basically the same thing as Roger Goodell. Let's be real here. But NASCAR, we're trying so hard to love you, but it's just literally, you just keep shooting us in the foot.
Oh, did you hear Kyle Busch's comments after the race about the package?
Oh boy.
And you know what? To NASCAR's credit, I thought for sure that he was going to get slapped with a fine. They said they're not going to fine him, which is
shocked.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know. I am too. I thought because it wasn't even. I mean, Denny Hamlin said something about the Gen 6 car. It's second ever race, and they gave him a $25,000 fine. But it wasn't even what Kyle said. It was how explicit and blatant he was saying it. Admittedly, obviously that's who Kyle Busch is, and you either love him or hate him. But I do think he certainly could have been a little more constructive with his criticism rather than just coming out and saying it bleeping sucks. But
I mean, this is a guy who went out with the Barstool Pizza guy and did a review basically saying everyone just needs to get good, and
Yeah. Well, and then people comment saying, "Oh, Kyle's only saying that because he didn't win the race." I want you to go back to the first ever race with a Gen 5 car at Bristol in 2007 and look at his Victory Lane interview and tell me what you find there, because he said those cars suck too, and he won the race. So.
Yeah, no.
At least the Gen 5 raced pretty well. I mean, it was obviously pretty ugly to look at, but
I mean, if it moves fast and it makes for entertaining racing, I'm okay with that. But I mean, for heaven's sakes, it could be a flying duck. If it moves fast and it creates for good racing, I'm good. I'm game. But obviously, please don't actually make it a flying duck. That'd be terrible. But
this whole idea that we're going to put the stock back in stock car racing, I think we sacrifice the quality of the races for how the cars look. And they don't even, Chase Elliott's car doesn't look like a Camaro, they try, the front bumper looks pretty similar and everything, but it's still not the same. Obviously, there's a difference between the NASCAR stock car and the production car. We're not going to go back to the 1950s here.
Actually, I feel like that this is just me being, me. I would just love to see these guys race each other in Toyota RAV4s and Cadillac Escalades, just these cars that aren't meant to go fast, just race each other in them. Dude, I want to see a soccer mom van race. Dude, why can't we get that going?
We got the truck series going. I mean, truck series is broke. But I should mention that. Yeah, truck series. I think there were 28 of a possible 32 trucks on the preliminary entry list this week, and 2 of them have withdrawn. So,
I mean, they're racing.
The field is pretty short.
They're racing tomorrow on FS1 at Kansas. I feel like it's gonna be interesting, but I still feel like it's gonna be a decent race. I mean, but it's gonna be.
Well, I mean, obviously, the teams that aren't showing up are smaller teams. And I mean, good night, Norm Benning was going so slow. I mean, I love Norm, and his run at Eldora a few years ago was classic. But I mean, when you're that slow, you got to get off the track. And NASCAR eventually did tell him to get off the track. When you're going that much slower than the leaders, it's just frankly unsafe to be out there.
It really is. But dude, I watched it and it just hurt. It genuinely hurt. It's the car's not up to par with everyone else's. Dude, at some point you just gotta throw in the towel.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, Norm knows he's not there to win or even get a top 10, but there is a point where... Doesn't mean you shouldn't
try. Dude, you kidding me? Someone's no, I don't think you can get a top 10. I'm going to be I'm going to try my dangest to make sure I get in the top 10. But, I mean, I just...
we all love Norm, but he is pretty much just a footnote at this point. It's unfortunate, but...
It's like watching a car crash. It's just you want to look away, but you just can't.
Because there's gonna be a crash if something.
Literally.
It's problematic. But anyway, let's get back to a little bit of a cup recap here. Alex Bowman, second week in a row, finishes second, so ties his best career finish. And Kyle Larson coming home third, finally gets his luck around. Really, I think this was his first decent race that he's had all year. So maybe this will be what moves that team in the right direction for the rest of the season. And Chase, I actually want to ask you, 3 drivers here: Alex Bowman, William Byron, Daniel Suarez. Who do you think gets their first career win first?
I think it's going to be Bowman.
You think it's going to be Bowman?
I think it's going to be Bowman.
That's how I'm leaning too with how he's running right now.
Just the way he's running right now, and I mean, I'm looking at his results right now, and I think he's just a solid driver. I feel like he's going to be able to get that first win first. I just think he's got it. I mean, he's been doing so well for so long. It's just it's got to give eventually. It's got to give. So
I think it's only a matter of time.
Yep. But
all right, Well, Chase, do you want to take this? This is your
All right,
segment that you do on your show.
This segment is called Two Real, One Fake News. On our show, The End, it's...
I thought it was Two Truths and a Lie.
Well, I mean, it's the same concept. However, it's really just to make sure that you're actually doing your homework. We take stories that we think are, so outrageous and so, off that they don't sound real, and then you have to decipher which ones are actually real. One of them is a fake story, no truth to it whatsoever. So, yeah. I mean, I pulled a fast one on Liam, and I did my family history, family news, and yeah, no, he did not know that I have a very, very large fear of heights, and I'm not going to repeat that story on air. If you want to listen to it, go to the SoundCloud. Let's find The End on Scot Radio. You can listen to it there. Anyway, moving on.
Sure. So a little bit of a twist on this show. I'm going to give the two real pieces of news and one fake news, and Chase is going to have to
the
try
laptop and everything.
Yeah, all right. So, number one, Busch Beer, who sponsors Kevin Harvick, has announced that they are staying true to their word because Harvick did not win the championship last year. They are going to run a millennial paint scheme at the All-Star race this year.
Oh my goodness.
It's a bright pink car, and it features phrases such as yeet, turns left, squad goals, AF, and is Bay.
It hurts. It genuinely hurts. Like, it's... But see, here's the thing. I know they would do something like that because, like, they don't understand the millennial generation at all, and they're just like, oh, yeah, that's like, oh, it's Bay? Bay? What is a Bay? Is that, like, something where, like, ships going? Like, I don't get it. I mean, obviously, it's a beer company, so they're probably plaster off their tails anyway, so... All right, next story.
Yep, all right. So, NASCAR has announced that during the Coca-Cola 600 in a few weeks on Memorial Day weekend, they are going to stop the race after the second stage momentarily. The teams are going to come out, and they're going to have a brief moment of silence and remembrance to remember the significance of Memorial Day weekend. So they're going to interrupt the race, bring the cars down. I assume they would bring the cars down pit road, and stop the race and honor the troops.
I think that's respectable. I mean, it's definitely not out of NASCAR's character to support the troops, so... Yeah, it's plausible.
All right, and the third piece of news, Fox Sports has announced that Ricky Craven will be taking over for Darrell Waltrip in the broadcast booth in 2020. Of course, Craven is a former driver. He was hired by Fox Sports from ESPN. Of course, he was released from ESPN along with several other NASCAR figures at the end of last season. But he does have booth experience working with ESPN, and he honestly is, if I ruled the world, he would certainly be my pick. I think he's very knowledgeable in the sport, and he's done a great job over at Fox so far, so they've announced that that's what the booth's going to look like next year.
That's good. So, I think I'm going to have... I think the first story is definitely true, because I heard rumblings of that beforehand. So, I mean, this was more of just, kind of like, like a friendly wager. So, I mean, I vaguely remember hearing about that, so I think that one's real. The second story, that was the one where it's the moment of silence. I'm torn between the third and the second one. I think I'm going to have to go with the second one. I don't think that they would go into pit row. I think they would literally just stop the cars, have the drivers climb out, and, just kind of, it'd be easier for placement and stuff. So I'm going to final answer, number 2.
That's actually real.
Really?
The Coke 600 will be stopped halfway through for a moment of silence.
Was it actually the Yeet car?
That is true as well.
Okay, so the...
Fox Sports has not announced a replacement for Darrell Waltrip yet, although I'm sure that's coming eventually. And if anybody at Fox is listening, hire Ricky Craven, because I think he's the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Anyway, Chase, you got to take a look at this paint scheme, man.
I mean, it definitely...
This is a real deal. And you know what? If you go to Lionel or Plan B Sales, you can order the diecast right now.
I don't doubt it. I mean, it's funny, and I feel like they're just doing it just, kind of...
I gotta say, I'm surprised NASCAR approved the hood. I really am.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's technically 2 letters, so they really can't say no, but I mean, at the same time, what are the letters signifying?
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, I can find the humor in that. As someone who is a millennial, I can find humor in it. So
Yeah. Well, the Bush Beer account tweeted out that they were going to do it last November if Harvick didn't win. He didn't.
and they're like, hey, we just gotta stay true to our
There you
word.
go. Yep.
And I mean, you're gonna get a lot of press coverage that way, and at the any press is good press. So
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Yeah. I think Kevin Harvick said something today like he can't even with the fact that he has to drive this car. But
Oh my word.
Yeah. yeah. And actually, I do want to get serious here for a second. I want to talk about this NASCAR stopping the race. Because there's a major debate on Twitter right now between a couple of prominent NASCAR YouTubers and NASCAR Twitter people. There are people who are on the extreme one side who think that this is completely unnecessary and, a bad look to interrupt the race to honor the troops when you're already honoring the troops for 2 hours before the race even begins. And obviously NASCAR is known for how much they salute the troops. And then you have people on the far other extreme who are saying, how can anybody not endorse this or be happy with this? Because you can never say thank you enough times for the troops. And Chase, I'll get your perspective here in a second, but I'm somewhere in the middle. I obviously, if this is the worst thing that NASCAR does all year, we're in great shape.
I can agree with that.
But at the same time, this is already the longest race of the year. What NASCAR fan, we're doing this to supposedly remember Memorial Day. What NASCAR fan doesn't know the significance of Memorial Day? Who in the NASCAR industry is not an avid supporter of the troops and thanks them for everything that they do for us? To bring the cars to a complete stop and put a halt to the race in the middle of the event, I don't see the purpose of it. I feel like there are more effective, more efficient ways to show patriotism than to interrupt the race itself. And of course,
even if you just did a, even an entire commercial section where it's like, all right, we're going to, go over to the troops and essentially they go over and just be like, hey, I'm from this way, I'm Sergeant such and such, I'm Private such and such, Lieutenant, petty officer, whatever you are, and you go over and just like, hey, I just want to say hi to my family, I love you guys, I miss you guys. I feel like that would be a lot more beneficial and essentially just have the race keep going. And just kind of have that play on the Jumbotron, have it play on the commercial, kind of like the simulcast where it's, all right, we're going to have the racing in one corner, then we're going to have the family shout-outs on the other. I feel like that'd be much more effective than just stopping the race and just remembrance. But, it's bad because at the same time, it's like, yeah, no, if you don't support it, you're, a jerk for not, supporting the troops. But at the same time, you're also kind of ruining the integrity of the race, which is also kind of a jerky thing to do. Because, nothing's more important.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, people are saying, well, no, how dare you complain? You have no respect. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying.
I think it's a flattering move to make. However, is it the right move to make?
Yeah. Or is it just even the most effective and efficient move to make?
Yeah, exactly.
It's.
And
it's a tough
one.
It's not totally unprecedented. In 2009, the race was delayed because of rain, so it actually was run on Memorial Day. And I have this vague remembrance. I think it was actually President Obama who asked people at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to stop what they were doing and take a second to remember troops. So I think that was pretty impromptu on the spot by NASCAR. They actually did throw up a caution flag and stop the cars on the track and have a moment of silence at 3 o'clock. Of course,
even if they just had the caution while they were driving, I feel like that'd be a little bit more.
Yeah, and of course, this race was actually on the day, so take that for what it's worth. I don't know if it means that much. Because the whole weekend really is filled with
NASCAR's they're gonna have to
come.
They're gonna have to come to the happy medium here, and I feel like they're probably just gonna throw the caution and just have them drive, and then everyone's just gonna essentially pay their respects. I feel like that's the best card to play right now because you got the troops' hopes up, and you ultimately have to pay homage to them. But on the other side, you also have the purist race fans who are like, that's gonna ruin the integrity of the race. So I feel like that's the happy medium here. So
yeah, it is coming after a pre-planned caution, of course. The traditionalist fans don't like the stages anyway. But even just the tires that they're running. The tires are going to have a honor and remembrance decal on the sidewall. There's so much that we do. We make it so obvious that NASCAR supports and salutes the troops. It's I don't know. It seems
It's a tough thing.
Seems kind of unnecessary to me, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it like some people have.
Yeah, some people are a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, but either way, it's going to be a nice, it's a nice gesture to the troops. So I feel like they really can't complain in that regard. It's just like, all right, what's the integrity of the race going to be? That's the only complaint I have. So,
all right. Well, of course, we play the Delta Force music for a reason at the start. It is Indy 500 month. I know NBC's not going to bring that music back, but I would love if they did. Those intros that Paul Page did in the 90s for ABC, oh, those are epic. Go look them up on YouTube. They're fantastic. But yeah, Chase, I think you actually had the odds pulled up.
Bet Chicago, a gambling website. Don't worry, I do not gamble because I am an NCAA athlete. They're saying Will Power is favored to become only sixth. What kind of writer writes this? That's why they're a betting website. All right. Will Power is favored to become favored to go back to back. Only the sixth driver to do it. And right now his odds are 7-1. And, other notables on this list. Ryan Hunter-Reay is, 10-1. Same for Helio Castroneves is 12-1. And Marco Andretti 16-1. Oh my gosh, Rossi is
8-1.
8-1.
Sato's 30-1. Is that right?
Say it again.
Takuma Sato.
Yep, 30-1, and then
so those are Rossi, Sato, and
dude. But my boy,
Power, your last three winners.
My boy Max Chilton, 60-1. He's gonna pull it off. That or Pippa May.
He led a bunch of laps in 2017. Of course, he was driving for Ganassi. He's not driving for them anymore. But
I think the winner is definitely gonna be Pippa Man, 500-1. I definitely feel, dude.
I think she's going to get bumped.
She's probably going to get bumped. But
I hope she doesn't. I hope she makes the field. I hope she goes out and qualifies well and has a great race. But it just, a driver got bumped last year, brand new team. I think it's going to be her, Ben Hanley, and one full-timer. I don't have one pinned down. I know David Land was saying Zach Veach, which... I don't know if it's an Andretti car. Andretti's been bumped before in recent years.
Right now his odds
Marcus
are 40,
Ericsson maybe.
His odds are 40-1. So obviously Chicago thinks he's going to be able to do pretty well.
Yeah. Well, he certainly is going to have the car to at least qualify.
Yeah.
But
so it's going to be interesting though. I'm looking at this race and I think this is going to be one of the more entertaining Indy 500s we have or at least in recent memory.
Yeah, definitely. It's the largest entry list since 2011, I believe.
So it's kind of depends on how many cooks you want in the kitchen because in some cases if you have you only have say 35 racers but they're all pretty decent racers and they're all comparable in skill with a couple of differences.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good race.
That was the case last year. I think all 35 entries last year were strong enough that you had to say, well, there's no bump day lock. You could see any of them qualifying for the race. And this year I feel like most people have Pippa Man and Ben Hanley on their bump list just because they are brand new teams. But who knows?
I wouldn't sleep on them.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
Kyle Kashers also has the same odds as Pippa Man, and you haven't mentioned him yet. So,
do you have Fernando Alonso's odds there?
Alonso. Yep. 30-1 odds.
Yeah, it's probably about right. We'll see.
It's gonna be. It's gonna be an interesting race. I'm excited to watch.
It's Indianapolis. It could be. It could be Alonso, Dixon, and Rossi getting bumped. Who knows what's going to happen?
The moment you assume anything in the Indy 500 is the moment you are wrong. This is why I highly go against betting on this race because it's essentially the NHL playoffs of the racing world. Because the moment you assume anything, it just completely blows up in your face. This is probably my favorite race besides obviously New Hampshire, but. Because there's just anything can happen in this race. I love this race and the history behind it. It holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, you think back to 2006, 2011, the guy coming out of turn 4 in the lead didn't win the race.
I know.
So you don't know until the very end. Speaking of 2006, if I had to pick a winner, I may be going out on a limb here, but I'm going to go out and say Marco Andretti, and I think that's more coming from the heart than the brain. But I've wanted Marco to win it for years, and obviously his career at Andretti has not been as successful as his teammates. And I don't know if it was something psychological. He finished second at Indy as a 19-year-old and came within a matter of yards of winning the race.
Well,
but the livery that he's driving for his grandfather Mario, it would be so special if he could pull off the win here. So he's definitely who I'm rooting for.
I think,
but I don't know.
All right,
I'm definitely picking from the heart more so here.
Who do I want to win? I want Hunter Ray to win, but that's just because he's my driver. He's always been my driver. But who do I think
he's gonna get bumped again, Chase? Just like 2011.
Do you want me to throw the table through the window? That is how you make me throw the table through the window.
It's all right. Don't worry. They'll buy one of the Foyt cars for him again.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I just slammed his laptop shut. All right. But who do I actually think is going to win? I think Castro Neves has a really good shot. I feel like they're kind of
really okay.
I think. I mean, he's the only other driver in this race who has won back to back. So I mean, Power obviously heavily favorite. And I mean, understandably so, he deserves to be, up in the contention. But Castro Neves, I feel like if he doesn't wreck early, I feel like he's gonna get, he's gonna make a push for the top. And if he doesn't win, I feel like he's definitely gonna be top 3 at least.
Well, and some people might say, Castro Neves hasn't run all year. He only comes to do Indianapolis in the Grand Prix, which, by the way, that's happening this week in the Grand Prix of Indianapolis on the Indy road course. So Elio only does those 2 races now. He's primarily racing sports cars for Penske, but they might say, well, he hasn't run all year, so he's going to be a little bit behind. And to that, I would say we're at the point of the schedule again where the first oval of the year is the Indianapolis 500, and I don't think it should be that way. I liked when we had, Phoenix beforehand and, an oval here, an oval there before we got to Indianapolis. I don't like the fact that it's all road and street courses beforehand. But the schedule is what it is, so nobody who's driven in an Indy car in 2019 has any oval experience this year. So I think Elio's on more level ground than you think, and obviously he's won the race 3 times.
And not even to mention the fact that he's won it 3 times, but he also won it back-to-back in 2001 and 2002. So according to this,
which were his first 2 starts ever.
Exactly. So I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't sleep on him, but
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't either.
I still want Hunter Ray to win, but that's just because he's my guy. But at the same time, I think Castro Neves, I think he's going to be able to pull it off. But I mean, I regret giving. Well, it pains me to give. I shouldn't say I regret it because honestly I don't. But I hate giving guesses or predictions for this because, as I mentioned before, this race literally is so unpredictable and just so like the high intensity racing. It's so unpredictable. You really don't know until about 5 seconds before the finish line who's actually going to win, and even then there are some times where you just don't know. So, but I definitely would recommend tuning in because I feel like this is going to be the race of the year. So, and that's going for all the motorsports, throughout the world. I think this is going to be the race of the year. Yeah.
NBC definitely doing a great job promoting the heck out of it. And definitely going to be one to watch for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about the Grand Prix this weekend, though.
I really don't pay attention to the Grand Prix, so...
Yeah, it's kind of a... Well, I don't think many people do. And I think its novelty is kind of worn off at this point.
It's like the appetizer before you get into the main course, where it's just like, oh, it's nice, but I mean... Dude, give me the Indianapolis 500. So
yeah. Well, there's a documentary airing this weekend on Mario Andretti on NBC, and I feel like NBC has promoted the documentary more than they promoted the actual race. And this is the first race on network NBC in I don't even know how long. I think you have to go back to the Champ Car days. So you would think that this would be a big deal for them, and yet here they are promoting the Mario documentary more than the IndyCar Grand Prix.
I mean, I can understand why, because Mario, what he's done for this sport, you can't put a label on that just because it's so massive. Like, he really made the sport what it was and was one of the defining characters in the sport. And I can understand why you want to promote the heck out of it, because, I mean, really, what's what's the Indianapolis 500 without Andretti? Just the moments he's been able to make there. How much he's been, so influential. You really can't deny that, but at the same time, you still got to promote the race because the race is very important as well. So I'm kind of torn, but
yeah. We'll see how the race goes. Maybe it'll be a classic, but I don't know.
Watch it be
the most classic IndyCar Grand Prix or Grand Prix of Indianapolis moment, I think, still is the very first race in 2014 when Sebastian Saavedra was on the pole and didn't get going, and there was a massive crash of a standing start, and a piece of debris hit the mayor of Indianapolis.
Oh, the pole sitter doesn't get going! Oh!
There is not a worse place to stall than at the start of a race.
Visor is up, telling everybody that he's okay. Steering wheel's coming off.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was. They tried a standing start, Formula One style. Pole sitter stalled, and it was a complete disaster. And here we are, 5 events later, 5 years later, and that's still the most memorable moment. Because there have only been 2 winners of the race in 5 years. It's only been Simon Pagenaud or Will Power. So the races have not been that memorable. They have not produced classic IndyCar races that you'll go back to and watch.
Debris hit the mayor. That's funny, but I mean,
it was not good.
I think if Will Power wins the Grand Prix, I think there's a good chance he's gonna, win the race. But I mean,
the 500, you mean?
The 500, yeah.
Yeah, so basically we do exactly what he did last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he's able to repeat that, I feel like you really got to worry. But I still got to go with Castor Neves. So.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see.
So.
All right, Chase, I think we're just about done here. You have any final thoughts or topics you want to cover briefly?
So, obviously, Ben, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's really,
absolutely. Thank you for coming on.
It's always fun to, because as an RSW major, I'm always diving into the world of like basketball, football, hockey, track, you name it. But I really don't get to dive into NASCAR, so it's like a breath of fresh air where it's like, it's so nice. But really, thank you for letting me be on here. I know there's a couple times where I kind of gave you a heart attack because you're like, oh my gosh, where's this kid going? But I do appreciate it.
You've been great. Yeah, you've been great. I want to give thanks to Matt Cole. Of course, I mentioned Matt might be back this week. His class had something to do with the ComArt Showcase, so he unfortunately had a schedule conflict. He couldn't make it, but
and
he, of course, was a regular.
MIA somewhere. I think he went to Canada or something.
Yeah, Dylan went home for the weekend, I think. But
Saskatchewan.
Matt was our regular co-host in Season 1, I guess, for the first semester, so certainly thank him for all his hard work. Thank you, Abby, for working in the tech. Yeah. It is a very small studio, but there is a team of a lot of people that work very hard to put this together, so we're very appreciative of the people at Scott Radio for giving us, particularly as ComArt students, this outlet here for us to be able to do radio and get some experience in media.
However small it may be, we still get the experience. We still appreciate it,
Yeah, we do a lot with a little.
Yeah, hopefully the budget cuts don't hit us hard with this. I mean, obviously, for those of you listening at on Ben's podcast or show, you probably don't know what that is. You really don't need to know. It's okay. Yeah. But hopefully we'll be back next semester and make the show better than ever.
All right, yeah, so that's going to wrap it up. Thank you all for listening throughout the year, throughout the semester, wherever you're listening. If you're listening to this after the fact on SoundCloud or on YouTube or live right now, thank you, our listeners. Thank you, everybody at Scott Radio. For Matt Cole, Dylan Burge, Chase Draus, everybody at Scott Radio, I'm Ben Schneider. We'll see you down the road.